Coming up on the Empowered Woman podcast.
Be kind to yourself about that. But remember, because it's like, the whole idea that our bodies sometimes still don't know we're not being chased by tigers when we're scared of like going live on the internet. It's that same idea, right? That your body hasn't caught up with what you want to intellectually feel.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on personal growth, visibility, and profit for women entrepreneurs. If you're wanting to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice in business, you're in the right place. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Marta Spurk, and I'm your host, empowerment coach, visibility and marketing expert, and all things motivation extraordinaire. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, Ryann. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, I am so excited to be here.
I am too. So fun. So I have seen you around for several years because we have several friends that are mutual, people that have worked with you. And I think you've worked with Rebecca Lima, who's a good friend of mine as well. So it was only a matter of time that we would connect, which we have. And we've talked back and forth and tried to meet up in person, which hasn't worked out, but it will eventually,
It will.
which I'm excited about. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'd love for us to get started with you telling us who you are and what you do, and we'll dive right in.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Ryann Dowdy. I run two businesses. So I run a women's community called Be in the Room, where we bring together smart, successful women leaders in a networking group meets mastermind meets like personal development trifecta in a really powerful way. And then I also run an agency with my team called the Connection Agency, where we work with entrepreneurs to bridge the gap between sales and marketing by starting conversations that are connection focused. So that is what I do professionally. I am a mom. I have an almost 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. So there's never a dull moment in the Dowdy household. My husband is the most supportive human on the planet. We're surrounded by family. We live in Kansas City, which we really, we try to leave often, but our people are here. So it's home for us. And it's created a really cool supportive environment for us. And especially for me, as my journey as an entrepreneur, there's the more hands, the better. So life is good.
For sure. Oh, I love that so much. And I'm so interested in having this conversation, knowing that you're running two businesses and that things have evolved throughout the years. So let's start with talking a little bit more about your personality. So I've asked you before, and you already know what your Enneagram type is, which I'm super curious to find out, and how you've been able to uncover these things. I like to say that the big life events like marriage, motherhood, and creating and building a business are the big things that really show you what you're made of and are great for figuring out your strengths and weaknesses and your Enneagram type. So tell us more.
Yeah. So personality wise, I'm super curious. I have been both a 3 and an 8.
Okay.
Anytime I've taken the test. Lately, I'm more and more 8 because the 3, I believe, is the performer. And I've gotten to a point where like, I can't be bothered to perform anymore. Like this is it. So I think the 8 is winning in Enneagram world.
Mm-hmm. And have you been seeing these characteristics? Like when you said 3 and 8, I was like, I kind of like could see the 8 more on there, like being, which is the challenger, being the person that says, what's on their mind and, very assertive about your opinions.
Yes. So very strong, very independent. Like I ring true in a lot of ways. And I would say in an earlier life where, how when they describe the Enneagram, it's like the healthy and the unhealthy. Yeah. I definitely resonated with the unhealthy things when I was younger, as I've had to go through this personal development journey as an entrepreneur and a mom and a wife and all the other things. I have certainly gotten healthier in that way, right? Stopped using, arguments and fights and being right and all of those different things as power play. I've gotten way better about that. And really allowing a way less judgment of myself and others. So that's been helpful in curbing that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Which gets me to my next step here, talking about listening to yourself, which goes hand in hand with noticing these things about yourself. And then as you grow, you're able to build that awareness, And just like what you're saying,
Mhm.
kind of stop yourself beforehand, understand what's helpful and what's not, what's healthy and what's not only for you stress wise, but for relationships and communication with others, which seems like you've been listening to yourself and you know what's going on. Now, in terms of, you said your husband's super supportive, which that is awesome. And you have lots of help from family around. What has your network, or, if you want to dive into those people as well, in terms of building your business, how that has been, or even your own self-talk too?
Sure. I have been so lucky, Marta, that I have been grossly supported by my parents, by my spouse, by the people that matter. I have definitely had some relationships that have had to change. People that I have had to put distance in, spend less time with, relationships that I've just kind of had to let fall away, because they weren't supporting where I wanted to go. And there was no more of a match. So I've been really lucky, like my inner circle, my husband, my sister, my mom, like the people I talk to all of the time
people that matter.
the people that matter are really supportive. But I find, I found myself when I became an entrepreneur, we did a whole kind of friend group swap. And then, there's a whole lot of up leveling right now where I was like, oh, every time I hang out with this person, I feel this way, or every time I'm in this room, I feel this way. And if I would just stop doing that, and it's funny, when you stop putting in the effort, you really kind of see where the effort was coming from and why the energy felt the way that it did. And so I am finding myself in another one of those kind of valleys of who are my people, not my professional friends and stuff like that, but like your people, the people off the internet, the people that maybe have no idea what you do for a living. Those people, we're definitely in a season of change there. But that's been probably one of the most challenging parts, right? Is being able to gracefully leave a relationship behind, and not like, oh my God, I hate you, I'm never speaking to you again, leave it behind, but I'm not going to continue to put myself in an intimate container with you more frequently than I have to because of our kids or our spouses, voluntarily, because it does not serve me in any way. And that's been, hard, because as women, we're so often taught, that's not okay. It's like, oh, you guys have been, we value so many relationships of convenience, or relationships of longevity, or relationships because they should be there, instead of like, can I be myself in this relationship? Am I happy in this relationship? Do I get anything out of this? So that's really kind of been my biggest up level with the people around me. And I've been really lucky with the ones closest. It's like the next layer out. Yeah.
That is such a tricky thing. I think even from a young age, like my kids are small too, but especially with the girls, I feel, with like, oh, my best friend. And I remember going through this growing up as well. And it kind of never goes away really, with, like you're really super close with somebody, and then life, air quotes, gets in the way. And then you're like, but should I do something about this? Or this is just a season. It's kind of hard to navigate and understand, is there something wrong? Did something happen? Or is it just that we grew apart because we have different goals? And that's okay. Just like what you're saying. It's not that I hate you, I never want to see you again. And I love that you use the word gracefully, kind of gracefully let it go, and understanding you mean well to, you wish them the best, but you're just kind of going in different directions, and that's okay. That's just part of life. And that leads me to my next thing I was going to talk. I wanted you to describe a little bit more about Be in the Room and the community that you've built. Because I remember when we connected one-on-one several months, I think, ago, you told me that you were in a moment where you decided that you didn't want to just focus on sales, and you wanted to create this community and have a little bit of a shift. And I wanted to talk a little bit about forgiveness, because you kind of already touched on this, and it's beautiful how things flow, in forgiving yourself for not following what's quote unquote right, the expectations of I need to be nice, and I need to keep these friendships, and I need to keep these relationships even if they're not serving me anymore, and also forgiving people in case they have done you wrong or whatever. So I'd love for you to touch more on the membership and what the vision behind that is, which I think ties in beautifully with what we're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's okay with you, I want to talk about forgiveness first, because it's going to kind of move into this a little bit. I think that's probably the season that I'm in. There's I hate to say this callously, and it's not intended that way. It's almost like the stages of grief. So, my whole story was I had a business, and then I wound up starting a second business with a business partner. That business partnership went very south very fast. And that's actually where Be in the Room was born, was out of what was happening at that time in my life and what I felt I really needed. and I jumped headfirst in because that's what I do. That's who I am. And it took me probably a lot longer to heal the personal hurt of, I mean, we're talking wild accusations, Marta, of stealing money, intentionally running the company into the ground, mismanagement of company funds. I mean, just stealing of leads, stealing of IP. I was accused of a lot of crazy shit by somebody who was my mentor and then partner. So I put that in a box and I put it away and I just kept going because, you know, that's what we're supposed to do. And I feel like I'm like unpacking that box right now of forgiveness of her, but also of myself, right? Like there was so much, like there were so many red flags. There were things I ignored. Why didn't I see it? Right? Because people, they do it so well-meaningly. They'll be like, well, I never jived with her. And I'm like, why? Like, why was I the only one?
After the fact, everybody.
I know everyone's like, yeah, there was just something about her that felt off. And I'm like, nobody had to tell me that. But it's like, you know, when your best friend's dating an a-hole, like you can't tell her that he's a jerk. She's not going to want to hear it anyway. So I'm sure it was the same situation. But so I think that forgiveness is such a big part of that. But it goes back to like, what did I create Be in the Room for? And I created it because what I needed wasn't available, right? I was going through a really tough time, having to make some really big decisions, and I felt very unsupported in my journey. I was surrounded by people, but completely alone, right? I think that we do that a lot on the internet. We're like, ooh, that girl, she has a lot of followers, or oh, every time she goes live, she gets a tons of likes and comments, or every time she posts about something on the internet, people buy things, and we make some assumptions about what that means for that person. And so it wound up, like I said, being surrounded by people and feeling completely alone. And I think COVID did that to us in a lot of ways, but I kept talking to successful women. And that was the thing, right? It was the turnover of friends, the turnover of relationships, even in business to business relationships, right? Like, you know, there were people that you were friends with and then your business exploded and those people weren't so nice to you anymore, right? Or other way around, you know, somebody else's business exploded and I hope that you were graceful enough to celebrate them. But then, you know, there wasn't as much of that. And so there was a lot of that happening in that season. It was the end of 21, beginning of 22. So I launched Be in the Room. And we say it's a movement of women of action who rebel against the status quo and build a life of success on their own terms. So the commonality of our members is this idea that like, there's a version of success that I desire for myself. But I want to define it. I want to create it. I want it to look the way that I want to look. And I want to be surrounded by people who support that mission. You know, the people who celebrate your great, big, giant goals, the people who you can, you know, talk about the challenges happening behind the scenes. What seems to happen is exactly what I described. People appear to be successful and all of a sudden their problems become less important, or it feels that way, right? We're like, and so we really wanted a container that was really safe for women to come, I say, like, and put down the bag of rocks, right? That you carry around. You put your mom rock in there and you put your business rock in there and you put your wife rock in there and then you put your mother-in-law rock in there. You know what I'm saying? You're just carrying around this backpack and there's very few places where it's safe to take the backpack off and be like, okay, this is what's happening. And so we wanted to create that container for women where they could take off the mask, put down the backpack, really be themselves. And we talk both personal and professional, because the idea that we're one or the other is kind of wild. So that's really what we do. So that's why I say we're kind of networking meets mastermind, meets personal and professional development, because, you know, our women are doing business with one another. They're building that inner circle. They believe in the whole network is your net worth, but they really don't want to do it in the transactional way. And we mastermind in that everything is peer-to-peer. We say that we took the guru out of the room. Nobody in our containers are expected to have all of the answers. It's really about like, oh, Marta, what's working for you? Oh, you know, Shannon, what's working for you? Oh, Jennifer, what's working for you? And really collaborating in a meaningful way. And then the whole personal and professional development is kind of the top of that triangle, because again, you know, you're either learning, you know, what do they say, you're growing or you're dying. And so the women that we bring together are constantly, you know, working to, if it's their relationship, if it's money, if it's their kids, if it's, you know, their business, they're constantly working on the inner as much as they are the outer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much there to unpack. First of all, thank you so much for being super vulnerable and sharing your story and in helping us see, for one, that things go wrong. Things don't always work out because we have this assumption, just like what you're saying. We see people online. It's like, oh, they get all the likes, so their life must be perfect, you know? So, but the silver lining of this prompted you to create something that you didn't see that was going on and that women did need. So that is beautiful. And also touching on the unspoken or the elephant in the room in terms of relationships between women, that we want to celebrate, but on the same hand, we want to be them, but then we don't want to be them. And then when you're in that position, you start seeing people doing what you were doing to others. And you're like, crap, I wish you were celebrating.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, there's so much there. This reminded me of, I was speaking for a group once about, women empowerment, all the things that I speak of. And somebody asked a question in the audience that kind of got me stumped a little bit. She was like, why do you think women need, we talked about so much about women empowerment. Why do you think women need to hear these things? And one of the reasons, there are several different reasons, but one of the reasons I feel is that at times women are their own worst enemies, right? We create this situation where we're competing so heavily against each other that it's not for anybody else to be bringing us down. It's almost like we are tearing each other down. And that's so sad. So I'm so grateful that you are building this community out of your own heartache and your own experiences in realizing that more women could benefit from that. So that is wonderful and beautiful.
Thank you so much. And it's so true. We see so much, what's the movie? Is it Mean Girls, where she's like, there's some girl on girl crime happening here?
Yes.
And it's a lot of that. And we don't want, most of the women don't want to do it, right? It's like, it's an envy reaction, right? But we don't want to tear down other women, but society, yes, we have to own our stuff. I'm not giving this away, but we've also been told, well, there's only so many seats at the table, right? Like we have been pitted against one another from a very young age of, okay, well, if there's 100 seats, women are only going to get, 35% of them. So, and there's 200 women. So we were naturally pitted that way. Like as soon as we became professionally focused in some way, that competition was bred into us. And so if you're like, God, I don't want to be envious of that woman. And I like logically know that she's a human having her own human experience, but damn, how come she's figured it out and I haven't? Like, be kind to yourself about that. But remember, because it's like, the whole idea that our bodies sometimes still don't know we're not being chased by tigers when we're scared of like going live on the internet. It's that same idea, right? That your body hasn't caught up with what you want to intellectually feel. So be kind to yourself in those moments. Please don't judge yourself in those moments, because we all have them.
Yes, that is such a great reminder. And it's very, very helpful to start from that place of self-compassion and self-forgiveness, which then leads us to us empowering ourselves. Let's talk about empowerment a little bit. First of all, again, congratulations on launching this beautiful community that is thriving. What are some other accomplishments that you're super proud of, big or small, whatever? Brag.
Yeah, absolutely. So things that I'm super proud of. So in addition to our virtual community, we are now planting in-person communities. So we now have a community director program where women can plant and launch their own Be in the Room community in their backyard. What I'm really excited about in that is, yes, we ask women to invest in their license to become a community director, but that we pay women. Like I didn't know, literally Marta was unaware that most women's organizations on the internet that have like a chapter president or something like that, that woman is a volunteer. That she is doing more invisible labor in the name of professionalism. And so I was like that wasn't even an option to me. So not only are we planting new communities, but we're paying women for their time, what they're worth, which I'm super pumped about. So I'll celebrate that. We've hosted now 2 in-person larger events, one in Kansas City in September of last year. Limitless we just did last weekend in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then we actually are going to host here again in Kansas City. We're going to do a little bit more retreat style. But I'm really celebrating the growth in each one of those events, in how I have to grow as a leader, how I have to grow as a presenter, how I have to grow in a lot of different ways. And it'll be easier to stop doing it. If I'm quite honest with you, it's a lot of work, you know that. But I just really learned that I create really magical connection when I bring people together, and I'm honoring that. And those are some things that I'm really excited about that are growing as we're putting this in-person component into what we do.
That is so wonderful. Wow. And it's been a little over a year since you launched.
January 22.
All of these things are already happening. That is amazing. Congratulations. Now, last but not least, well, I do have another question after this too, but the last step here in my framework is transform yourself. And I think you already spoke to that a little bit in terms of like your Enneagram and noticing, some differences in your behavior, motivations as you grow and evolve and become more aware as well and get into a healthier space. So you could definitely speak to that. Or if you want to share any client stories, big transformations that are top of mind, I would love to hear it.
So the biggest transformation I think that I have gone through on my own, and then also I think this is a big part of what Be in the Room creates, is the transformation of improving that relationship with yourself. Right? Really honoring you. Because again, as women from a very young age, we are still of the generation where a lot of our mothers were the caretakers, right? Whether they were stay-at-home moms or whatever, but we watched our moms operate in a specific way. And so we are the first generation that doesn't have to operate in that way, but how to find our identity and not operating in that way and really saying, who am I? What do I want? What means a lot to me? So the biggest transformation I think that we provide inside of our community is this safe space to work that out and honor all the parts of you. Right. So the things you were like, oh, I didn't know that I would want to do that. Or I've always said that I don't want to do that. Or, those types of things. I'll give you a specific example for myself. So one of our speakers at Limitless in Scottsdale had us led us through an NLP exercise. And so we stood there with our eyes closed and we created, these visuals of what we wanted to be. And I realized that my vision for Be in the Room is way bigger than I've been willing to admit to myself. And that terrifies me, right? Because it's like, oh, it's no longer like, oh, I lead this room of a couple hundred women. It's like, this becomes a global movement with attention and conversations and stages and the stuff that people don't want to talk about. And so that is kind of my work right now, but that's the sort of stuff that we're constantly doing. It's like, okay, how do we honor that? And may or may not be the next Mel Robbins. I don't know, but how do I honor that vision in as many ways that I can? And to me, that's the true transformation is how do we honor ourselves every single day? And that's what we really encourage our members to do, where they're like, well, I really hate this offer in my business. We're like, stop offering it, right? Oh, I have this team member who's consistently underperforming, but I'm afraid to fire them because they tell me all the time that, whatever. So really honoring yourself, I think is the biggest transformation.
Oh, that is so good. And now I have the $1 million question for you.
Ooh.
Are you ready?
So ready. I'm so ready.
What is an empowered woman then?
I mean, I think it is a woman who owns her power. It is a woman who says that the people in my life are there because I want them there. The career that I have is there because I want it. The friends in my life are there because I want it, right? It is a woman who looks around and, there's the 80-20 rule, right? There's 20% of the things are obligation. We still have to pay the mortgage and brush our teeth and do all those things. Yeah. But is 80% of your life what you want, what you desire? To me, that is a truly empowered woman that can say, yes, I chose these things. I chose this. And I feel good about those choices.
Yeah. That is
an empowered woman.
So many truth bombs, Ryann. That is amazing. Well, tell us how we can find you, how we can connect with you, learn more about Be in the Room and your other offerings. And I'll be sure to put that in the show notes.
Yeah. So you can go to beintheroom.org is our website. Beintheroom.org/join walks through our membership specifically. We do have a Facebook group called Be in the Room. I spend some time on Instagram, but I spend most of my time on Facebook. Yeah. And I'm owning that lately because I used to be like, we can find me here and you can find me there. And I'm like, well, you're not going to find me there. You're going to find my team there. But if you'd like to find me, I'm on Facebook. Our website is great. As well. And I just really love having, candid, open conversations like this one. And I'm always open to connecting with new people. So thank you so much, Marna.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode empowered you. And if you enjoyed the show, please join the Empowered Woman community on Facebook and share with friends or leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover this empowering message. Until next time, bye.